So welcome back to our history of the Jewish people. We are talking about Yaakov, and he's just a quick review. He'd run away from home because Aisav wanted to kill him. He spent 14 years learning in the yeshiva of Shem and Aver, and then he went down to Lovin. While he was down in Lovin, living under that swindler, cheating deceiver, he did marry Leah and Rachel. He wanted to marry Rachel, but they got Leah and Rachel. And then also received their handmaidens, who over time he released them and married them as well. So he has 4 wives. And we've been tracking in the last class, we tracked the birth of the different children and the benefits of them. And we said that at this point, we're looking at it's time to leave. It's time to get out of there, right? And that's what we want to be talking about tonight is leaving Lovin, and we'll cover this departure from Lovin and get up to the entrance back to Israel and meeting of Aisav. So we're dealing with Lovin and for Aisav, right? Never a lack of challenges going on in his life, right? Which again is the prototype for the entire Jewish people. We're never at lack for challenges going on in amongst the Jewish people. So he's coming back to Eretz Yisrael. He's left Lavan, coming back to Eretz Yisrael, and he is preparing himself to meet with Aisav, his twin brother. Now, this is the Aisav that he ran away from years ago because Aisav wanted to kill him because of the whole incident with his father's blessings, right? So he tells some of his staff that I want to send you ahead to pave the way for the meeting with Aisav, right? And of course, they're mortified because they know about Aisav's reputation. And so they're mortified to go. And he says not to be afraid because the angels that have protected me on my journey, they will protect you in your mission and that you can go unafraid. Now he tells them, when you get to Aisav, this is what I want you to say. And so he's helping them, preparing them for the language. So each group, he tells them, this is what you have to say. Humble yourselves before him and call him my master. Use the languaging that will build him up, right? Tell him in my name, im lovon garti. With Lovin, I have lived. And then, of course, meaning Lovin is the master of all the swindlers, right? And I overcame him. Basically saying that I lived with Lovin and I overcame him, you're not going to succeed in this, right? And he says, in Lovin Garti, the word Garti means I dwelled temporarily, right? But that dwelling has the numerical value. When you take the Hebrew letters and you work on add up the value of the Hebrew letters, it equals 613. So what he's essentially saying, I lived with Lovin, and I kept all of the 613 mitzvahs that will be incumbent upon the Jewish people, which means my God still protects me. You have no chance of victory over me, right? And that's the bottom line. And I think that we recently talked about a book about the Jewish way of war, right? And that's the bottom line with the war as well. If we are close to God and the fact that we're following Torah and mitzvahs, then we have nothing to worry about because he takes care of us, he protects us, and he wages war for us. So this is basically what he's saying. In Lovin Garti, I lived with love and I fulfilled the 613 mitzvahs. You have no authority over him. And then to tell him that you hate me on account of the blessing which I received from our father. Our father blessed me that I would be granted the dew of the heaven and the fat of the earth. Of course, that would represent dew of the heaven, and fat of the earth would be as a farmer, right? I possess oxen, donkeys. I don't have dew of heaven and the fat of the earth. So why are you, the blessing didn't happen. Why are you upset with me, right? I possess an ox, a donkey, sheep, manservants, and maidservants. This also has a deeper meaning. Meaning, the ox is a reference to the son Joseph that was just born. Each of the tribes had an animal that they're related to, and we've talked about that before. Like Yehuda is Arya, is the lion. The tribe of Judah is like the lion, right? So the tribe of Yosef is compared to an ox, the stubbornness of duty, right? Yisachar is likened to the donkey, who is like a jackass when it comes to studying Torah. He's unbudged. No matter what's going on, he's still studying Torah, right? I have sheep, which is the faithful servant of like following Hashem. We are faithful servants to follow Hashem as our shepherd, right? And among my descendants in the future, there'll be a man servant like David HaMelech and a maid servant like Avigail. Both of those being very great and holy. And knowing this would weaken Aisav's potential strength. Meaning I have all these things going for me, and so you won't have strength to overcome.
What about the fact that he divided his camp into two?
We're going to talk about that right now, right? So he's explaining that as he sends the messengers ahead to tell Aisav this idea. So what he's doing, he's using diplomacy first. That's his first deployment here is going to be is diplomacy, is to try and to clear the way that things will go peacefully, right? I come to you in peace. I'm ready to have peace, but let him know also that if he won't accept it, I'm prepared for war. So the messengers, they go out and they meet with Aisav, and they came back and they refer to Aisav, your brother, meaning he is your brother, but he's not behaving that way because he is coming towards us now with an army, a massive army. You know, even though you reached out to him in a brotherly way, he's coming with 400 soldiers, experienced soldiers, generals of war, to come out and meet with you, right? So in one sense, we say, was that really a good idea to send messengers ahead? It just prepared him, right? You know, if you'd done a surprise attack on Aisav, you could have the advantage of surprise, right? Now you don't. You just lost that by sending messengers ahead. But at the same time, if you are reliant on God, then you can go for peace first. And then if you need to, you fight for war. But you have that opportunity. And that's one of the things that Torah tells us, is to seek peace initially, if at all possible. And now it's an interesting place, because the next thing we talk about here is that Yaakov says, as he's starting to come forward for this, he has prepared by sending messengers ahead and trying diplomacy, right? He has also prepared through prayer. He begins with Ketante mikol hachasod mikol ha'emes. I am made small, would be the literal translation, right? I am humbled by all of your goodness and truth. Meaning that part of Yaakov's concern is, I came across this Jordan River, this Yarden. I came across this Yarden with a makli, my staff, with my stick. That's it. Remember when he was running away from Aisav, right? And Aisav sent his son to chase after him. He lost everything, including the clothes on his back. He crossed this river with just a stick. And now he's coming back with an entire entourage of family and servants and sheep and oxen and everything else, a lot of wealth. And so he's concerned that God has already paid me for whatever kindness I was deserving of. He has already more than amply rewarded me. So I go into this battle really with no merits at all, because I've already been more than duly paid. And so he comes with this part of this level of humility. And in humility, he now turns to God in prayer to say, I don't deserve your protection, but I'm asking for it, right? I'm asking for all of your protection. And so he comes to God with a prayer, a tefillah, that I should have peace and security. And if you'll protect me, then I'll be, he's praying for the protection, divine protection as we go into warfare, right? And then the final preparation is he prepares for war. So he begins with diplomacy and he begins with prayer, but he prepares for war. And the part of his preparations for war is not only arming everyone, but he splits his camp into 2 divisions. And the most precious division he puts in the rear, and the more foremost soldiers he puts up in the front, and they're prepared, and he leads them, setting a standard on Jewish battle as well. And he leads the whole entourage, prepared to be the one to meet the brunt of the challenge will come upon Aisav. And so the other thing he does here is that he takes his daughter Dinah, and following a previous tradition from Avram and Yitzchak, he puts Dinah into a case, a box, hiding her from Aisav, so that the wicked Aisav won't get his eyes on her and want her. So we can all relate to the idea of protecting your family. We all get that, right? She's the only unmarried daughter. We get the idea that he's protecting her. At the same point, if there was any chance of Aisav doing teshuvah, of Aisav coming back to God, Dinah had that capacity. Dinah was a very unique individual who had the capacity of changing things and even bringing Aisav back around. That's not what Yaakov wants. It's not what any father wants. So he hid his daughter, but God is going to hold him accountable for that. And we do say later that some of the things that happen to Dinah are as a result of being the protective father. I'm not even going to use the words overly protective father because I see nothing wrong with what Yaakov did.
I hope he punched holes in the box.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a future part of the story. But
wouldn't you think that trying to hide her so obvious will make it?
There's lots of luggage there. There's lots of luggage there. She's not the only box there. She's well camouflaged. Nevertheless, so now we come to the next part of the story where, as they're coming forward, he's sent those messengers ahead. He has prepared. He has separated his camp. He has done his prayers. They come to the Yabok River. I had mentioned Yarden before. It's Yabok.
Yeah.
They come to the Yabok River, and he does this ferrying back and forth of all of his camps, all of his stuff. He gets some across and comes back to get the next ones, gets some other across, get back there. And as nightfall is coming, he's going back across to pick up some lost bottles, some containers. Now, pachim ketanim, small containers, you might say, like, what? Like, why is he troubling himself to go back for those things? This, too, is a lesson for us, and that's the responsibility. The Jewish people, what we collect is not just random items. What we collect are the things that we are intended to elevate to holy status. That's why they come into our domain, is because we have a responsibility to elevate them. So Yaakov goes back even for the pachim ketanim, the small bottles, the small vessels, because it's a responsibility. The things that we have possession of are meant for us to be making into holy usage. It goes back for those things. While he's back, he ends up meeting someone who then engages him in battle. And the battle is a night-long struggle, a wrestling match all night long, bless you. And throughout, we find out in the struggle, we find out that this is not just a guy, this is the guardian angel of Aisav. The guardian angel of Aisav is trying to destroy Yaakov even before he gets to the physical meeting with Aisav himself. And they wrestle all through the night. And as the night is coming to a close and dawn is rising, the angel is struggling with him and pulls a punch to the sciatic nerve, injuring Jacob. And he's limping. now. And yet he does not back off. He does not let go. He continues to struggle. And the angel cries out, let me go, let me go. Why should I let you go? It is my turn to sing Shira, to sing the morning praises to God in the heavenly courts. You only get once in your existence, one chance at this. Today is my chance. Let me go. And Yaakov refuses until you bless me. Until you acknowledge that the blessings my father gave to me belong to me, rightfully so, not stolen. Once you acknowledge that, I'll let you go. And so the angel finally acknowledges and blesses him. He tries to avoid giving the blessing because who is he to do the blessings? God himself will bless you later. Nope, you have to do it yourself. And so he finally blesses him, and with that, he is released. Yaakov is still wounded from the battle in the sciatic nerve, and in fact, it is because of this wound that we do not eat the sciatic nerve in any of the kosher animals that we eat. Now, typically, there is a way to remove the sciatic nerve, and it's taught how to do this, but it's a laborious activity which only increases the price of the meat. So it's much less expensive for kosher butchers to actually just sell off the hindquarters rather than try to move the gid hanasha, the sciatic nerve. Just sell off the hindquarters to non-kosher butcheries, and they'll take it from there. That seems to be a more profitable route. That's where we go that way, which is why you can't get a kosher rump roast.
Shucks.
But the idea is that we sell that part off. But it's here in this aspect that we have this context that even in Jewish law, in the law books, it states that Aisav hates Yaakov. It's just a reality of the world we live in, that Aisav and his type hate the Jewish people, and it's not going to change. No matter what type of anti-Semitic educational materials we try and present, it is halacha. Aisav hates Yaakov. There's a sina, a hatred that's deeply ingrained. It's not going to change.
So doesn't that go to the fact where we was talking about you can't change evil. You only have to fight it, eliminate it.
We have to do our best to eliminate it, but there's different kinds of evils, and the evil of Aisav, we can't completely destroy it, but we have to continually fight it at all turns. At every turn, we have to continually fight that evil of Aisav. The evil of Amalek is the evil that we have to utterly destroy, completely wipe out and desolate. That's a different type of evil. And again, not for our class now, but we have to be able to understand and distinguish the different types of evil and our responsibilities to them, right? So as they now come closer to actually meet with Aisav, so again, he sent messengers ahead for political purposes. He has done his prayer, and he has done separate his camp to prepare for war. So he's done his hishtadlus. Hishtadlus means he's created the vessel by which God can bless him. It's not like he stands back and waits for God to do everything, right? You have to do your part. He's done his part as he comes to this greeting. As he comes to conduct himself, Yaakov bows down to Aisav 7 times. Now, there are Mefarshim commentators that say, he's still wounded in the gid hanash, in the sciatic nerve, so he falls 7 times. He's not bowing, he's falling. So there's that commentary. But there's also the commentary that he bows. He shows respect, right? He shows respect even to Aisav. And we need to understand that there's that concept of bowing to the divine will, even as it is embodied in Aisav. Whatever it is that's going to happen, we're acknowledging up front that whatever it is, this too is part of God's will. This too is part of the divine will. So as he gets closer, Aisav is full of malice. We already have established he hates him, right? And so Aisav, in his own mind, he's an animal. He wants to sink his teeth into his jugular vein and kill him. But God performs a miracle, turning Yaakov's neck into marble. And of course, now Aisav doesn't have his teeth and he starts going to be talking
All I
about
want for Christmas is my two front teeth.
So, but what's interesting is that Aisav then starts to ask, like, what was this group that came ahead? What is this? Yaakov is thinking that it's all the messenger he sent ahead, and so he answers, those are my gifts to you. Those are my messengers that I come in peace, and those are my gifts I'm giving to you. And Yaakov had sent them with space in between each one. So like he'd see this herd coming, and it's a gift to you, and there's another herd coming over the hill, it's another gift for you, and it just keeps coming. He spreads it out, and it just seems like even more than it is a huge gift, but it appears even greater, right? So that's what Yaakov is thinking, right? Aisav is saying, no, I'm not talking about that. Last night, there was army after army that attacked me. And Yaakov was, what? Army after army attacked me, and they said, who are you? And I said, Aisav, and they beat me. And I said, I am Abraham's grandson, and they continued to beat me. And I said, do you know who I am? I'm Isaac's son, and they continue to beat me. And it's only when I said I'm Jacob's twin brother, they said, oh, all right, we'll let you go. and it was army after army that this happened to. It's like, what is that? And Yaakov realizes that these are the guardian angels that, if you remember back to that dream with the ladder, there were angels coming down from heaven to protect him when he goes into Israel, and the angels that came from heaven to protect him as he goes out. Angels from Israel are going back up. He's coming back to Israel now. The angels, the guardian angels of Israel, took care of him before he arrived. And they gave Aisav a solid lesson before they even came together, right? So Aisav has been beaten into submission to a degree, and he says, all right, so let me accompany you on your trip, and Yaakov is we're headed to Har Seir, to the mountain of Seir, but I travel really, really slow because I have to travel at the pace of the youngest goats and the youngest children, and I have to travel very slow. So Asa says, well, let me accompany you. I'll leave some of my people with you to travel with you. And Yaakov was like, no, really, no. We don't need that. No, we have plenty. We're really good. We have plenty here. There was a question also that Aisav is asking, I thought you were only interested in Olam Haba, the world to come, and not just the physical things, right? And so he asks, how did you amass such wealth in the world? And Yaakov answers that God granted me all this because I need them in this world to use in God's service. So all of this wealth is only for the service of God. Yaakov's wives drew closer, and each one of them bowed in deference to Aisav. Aisav surveyed them. He didn't see Rachel because Joseph at this point was standing up big and tall in front of his mother, so the evil eye wouldn't be cast from Aisav, right? And he gets rewarded for that because of his protection for his mother. Rachel was actually pregnant with Benjamin at that time, and he, she'd seen Aisav. She could have miscarried from the fright of the ugly guy. So Joseph is blessed that in the future he will have blessings in the future because of his stepping up. We know that Haman had an argument in the Purim story. Haman had an argument with Mordechai, saying, "Why don't you bow down to me like everybody else does? Your forebears bowed down to Aisav, so don't tell me you're different." And he said, my father wasn't born yet. Benjamin wasn't born yet. And I said, he did not bow down. So on my side of the family, in my tribe, we don't bow, right? Anyway, so Yaakov is trying to give him all of this. Aisav, he says, I have plenty, keep what's yours. And in that verbiage, he has now acknowledged, keep what is yours. That refers to the blessings as well as all the wealth. Keep what is yours, right? And having now stated that, we're done with this challenge here. When they go to travel on, and Aisav gives all the ideas on, let me send people with you. I'll travel with you. I'll send people with you. Yaakov's response is, I'll meet you at Har Seir, right? Now we notice Aisav then departs, right? Yaakov never goes to Har Seir. So like, what was that, like a lie? Like Yaakov, whom we call the righteous of our forefathers, that was a lie? Not a lie. We will meet Aisav there. Har Seir is the mountain of judgment when Mashiach comes. And we will meet him there on his day of judgment. We will be there. Just not yet. But we're not done. We are still on this journey, right? And we're not there yet. So Aisav then travels on ahead. Yaakov and his families continue. I wanted to stop for a second and mention life can be really hard. Yaakov is the prototype of all of our forefathers. You know, everything that happened to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is a foreshadowing for the Jewish people. But Yaakov more than all the others. Yaakov, the angel that he fought with, Aisav's angel that he fought with, called him Yisrael. Your name will, from here on, your name will be called Yisrael. Yaakov means heel, reminiscent to Yaakov holding on to Aisav's heel. But Yisrael means prince among the world, that he will be a prince of the world. And you will only be called Yisrael from this point forward. And Yisroel, his life is the foreshadowing of everything that will happen to the people Yisroel as we go through the years of our the generations of our descent, right? So let's look at Yaakov's life. The first 13 years, things were fine. He was at home. He learned with his dad. He learned with his grandpa. He had a twin brother that was behaving himself more or less. Everything was fine in the childhood years, right? But then he has to deal with getting the blessings from his father, not in the nicest and smoothest of ways. Then he has his brother who wants to kill him and he has to run away. Then he's years and years and sitting at Torah, studying Torah, away from family, away from everything else, just secluded in the tents of Torah for 14 years. Then he goes down to Lavan and he deals with all the problems with Lavan. He's finally trying to come home. He's overcome all of those challenges. He's coming home, and now he has to deal with a twin brother who still wants to kill him. There's never a dull moment in his life. There's never a time when he's not being challenged. He now comes to one of the more difficult challenges in life. We're not done. There's more challenges to come. But here is where they come to Shechem, the city of Shechem, and they go to seek to establish the camp in Shechem. And there is this knowledge that God had promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that the land of Canaan will belong to them and their progeny forever. So there's this understanding that this has been told, that this is the rumor going around in the world, right? Everybody knows the story. They come to Shechem, and while they're there, the prince of the land falls in love with Dinah. Dinah is the daughter of Leah, and she has gone out to see what's going on in town, what's going on with the peoples. And Shechem ben Hamor. Shechem is the name of the city, but it's also the name of the prince. And that goes together. He named the town after the son he was having, etc. So he gets an eye of her, and he does everything in his power to take her, and he kidnaps her, he molests her, he rapes her, and word gets out. Right? Now, he goes to his dad and says, go talk to them. I want to marry her. Go make this match. And his dad tries to do that, says he'll do anything, right? He goes to Yaakov and he says, my son's fallen in love with your daughter and he wants to marry her. You come and we'll marry your daughters, you marry our daughters, and we'll intermingle and we'll become one big happy people. Yaakov is in a conundrum here because he's got a small fledgling family. I mean, yes, they're big, but they're not enough to overcome 7 nations and take control of this land. They're not ready for a war. So he doesn't want to start up, right? But when he gets there, so Shimon and Levi, they speak up at this conversation with Hamor, and they speak up and says, it's not our custom to intermingle with uncircumcised people. So we will consider the idea, if all of your people will be circumcised, we'll consider your deal here, right? So Hamor comes away excited. He's got a yes. It's a conditional yes, but he's got a yes. This is going to work. Great. He goes out and he tells everybody, of course, they're not interested in doing it, but he said, hang on a second. You understand how wealthy this guy is? You know what happened when he was by Lavan, the wealth that he amassed there? We could convince him to move in with us, and we're all going to become filthy rich, and you'll marry his daughters, he'll marry your daughters. We're all going to be filthy rich here. We got to convince them to stay. And of course, that swayed the crowd to get circumcised because it's going to make them filthy rich. So they go through the circumcision. 3 days later, which is known to be the most painful time after surgery, Shimon and Levi go through the town and they kill all of the men. Everybody all the males over 13, they wipe them all out in one shot. 2 guys. By the way, Shimon and Levi, they're not much older than 13 themselves. And this is when we talk about what's the age to be bar mitzvah? 13. Why is that? Because that's the age of taking responsibility. You can now count for a minyan, which is the idea of communal responsibility. Shimon and Levi, they go out and they kill everybody. Now you want to say well, that's just murder. No. Remember that according to Noahide laws, one of the Noahide laws is that you will establish a just judicial system that rewards and punishes compliance so that you can have a civilization. And everyone has already agreed from the time of Noah that rape is not appropriate, is not acceptable, and it carries a death penalty. And the people of the town did not establish a just judicial system to hold him accountable for rape, and therefore exact punishment on him. So they are all culpable for not fulfilling the Noahide laws. And so therefore, according to the laws of the world at that time, they were all culpable, and Shimon and Levi were just exacting punishment, following through with the law. But Yaakov is very upset with him, because don't you realize what you've done? You've just put our entire family at risk. Once the people of Canaan see that we're conducting war, they're going to all band together and they're going to come attack us, and there's no way we can overcome this. And kachava, so it came to be that the rest of them heard the Jews are taking over as we heard there was going to be, and therefore we have to protect ourselves. We have to amass together, and they banded together to come and attack the Jewish people. Yaakov's fears were absolutely justified, but God, in His divine grace, cast a terror upon all the advancing armies, and they ran and fled before they ever engaged in battle because they were mortified from the fear that God put in them. A totally irrational fear. But that works.
Yeah, so long as it works.
It absolutely worked. You put an irrational fear in them and they ran away. And so Shimon and Levi went to take their sister back. But Dinah was like, after this, who's going to marry me? Why should I come back? I'm never going to have a life. And Shimon said, I will marry you. She was a daughter they shared a father, but not a mother. And at that time, that was permissible. And he said, I will marry you. He's already married, but multiple lives were already acceptable as well.
Yep.
I will marry you, and you'll be part of our household, but come home. Come back to our people. And so that is exactly what happens. She comes back, and she joins the people, right? I want to foreshadow. And I want to just mention here that God, everything's planned. God has organized things all along the way. From this event, Dinah does become pregnant. That child will be given up for adoption by the family. And we will meet this young lady again later at a critical time when things could go bad, and she will be back. She will be there at that time. So God is, we say in Jewish world, we say that God provides the refuah before the makli, provides the remedy before the illness, right? So some bad times are about to come, but God has already planned ahead for that. And even though we say that this was a negative situation, positive is already being planned. So Shimon and Levi, their anger will be cursed by their father, not them, but their anger, right? But again, God still covered. So can we say they were wrong? No, they're defending Jewish women. No way, they're not wrong. Did they do a full risk assessment and make a logical, natural choice in the situation? No, their father did.
Way, if you do that, it's the best way of never doing anything.
So Yaakov didn't do anything, and they did. Mm-hmm. So that's why I teach a character development class. That's it's a character development class where we talk to cadets about the physical growth of the human being and the brain, and how the frontal cortex doesn't grow as strong as as fast as the limbic system, and so passions run rampant ahead of time. Only later does the frontal cortex make the judgments, be able to do a risk assessment properly, which is why our soldiers are all people who are under 23 years old, where that frontal cortex is not completely developed yet.
And that's why the United States Army screwed up. They drafted me when I was 24.
So
I already knew too much.
Exactly. That's that. But that's that divine aspect of creating a system to work out, right? So all the military personnel that have to go into the places that a logical person would not go to. Yeah, so we send the people that don't have a fully developed logical frontal cortex, right?
In other words, when they're young and stupid.
Exactly. And we reap the full benefit of that as well.
Yep.
As they travel on, Yaakov travels to Base Kale, which is a place where he'd originally come through. And when they make camp there, his old nursemaid comes to visit and inform him of his mother's passing. And so he hears about his mother's passing. His nursemaid is now with them, and she will be passing away. Her name was Devorah. She passed away there, and he buried her in this location as well. But now Yaakov is thinking, my father Yitzchak is blind. He can't leave the house. Aisav is around, like, I need to go back and take care of my father, right? So he's going to head back to the house now and take care of his father. We'll talk more about this as we get closer. Let's cover a couple of other topics before we wrap up. One is that they get to Beis Lechem in their journey, and in Beis Lechem, Rachel starts having labor pains, and it's not going well. We have an understanding that when someone is in danger, the heavenly court does an examination of, is this person worthy of divine grace or not? We try to avoid situations where we're going to end up having that courtly discussion, right? Are we deserving or not? But Rachel, she gives birth to a son and 2 daughters, but she dies in childbirth. The special merits for the Jewish women are the mitzvah of challah, taking challah from the dough and making the dough and giving that to the Kohanim, or in our case, we don't have a base of English, so it has to be burned. Keeping the laws of family purity is upon the women, a special mitzvah for the women, and Shabbos candles, a special mitzvah. And Rachel was judged by the heavenly court during childbirth, and she was not found lax in any of these mitzvahs. She was not missing anything. So it wasn't on her judgment that she passed away, that she suffered in childbirth, but rather the fact that when she had taken the idols from her father as they escaped Lavan, Yaakov, not knowing, had cursed whoever stole the idols. And it was because when a tzaddik gives a decree, it gets fulfilled some way or another. And so it's in childbirth, in that judgment, that's when she passes away. And she is the child is named Benjamin, the son of my right. That's another explanation another time. Yaakov buried her near Beis Lechem along the way, not because he didn't want to bring her to Moras HaMachpelah, where he will be buried, but by divine providence, by divine decree, that she will be there. Why does God want Rachel to be buried along the roadside in Beis Lechem? Because in the future, the Jewish people will be dragged out into exile. They will be dragged, taking this road to Rome, they will be dragged through Beis Lechem. And God wanted to arrange that there would be someone of Rachel's caliber there for them, to comfort them in their trials and tribulations, and to pray for them. So, again, Rachel, the quintessential Jewish mother, is sacrificing her opportunity to be buried with her husband and the Avos and Imahos, the holy people of Israel, in Moras HaMachpelah. She forfeits that right in order to be with her kids in their time of trouble. She chooses to be buried on the road. Her godly soul chooses to be buried along the road and be there for her children when they're going out into exile. And God tells Yaakov she needs to be buried here. And we will see that, yes, Rachel will arise in the spiritual realm during our galus, and she will say, Rabbeinu Shalom, it is well known that you and your servant Yaakov loved me, and we've served my father 7 years on my behalf. At the end of the 7 years, I ended up giving away the birthrights, giving away the signal to my daughter, my sister, so she should be. Rachel gives all this list of the sacrifices she made for the Jewish people. Now stand by my children. Now stand by them. And so it's only through her support that we make it as far as we do. Another story that comes up in this period, after we've come back to Israel, we've come back to the Holy Land, and Yaakov is settling in, right? So when Rachel passes away, Yaakov now has one primary wife and two concubines, two secondary wives. He takes his bed and he puts it in Bilhah's tent, that will be his primary dwelling going forward. He still has to have conjugal rights to all of his wives, but that will be his primary residence. Well, the Leah, remember, Leah is the one who didn't want to get stuck with Aisav, and she was the one who prayed to God that, my husband doesn't love me, bless me with children. And Reuven was born, so he's named Reuven because God has seen my affliction. And each of she bore half of the 12 tribes, right? And now Yaakov puts his bed by Bilhah. And for Reuven, the eldest son, Leah's eldest son, that's an insult to his mother. And out of respect for his mother and deference to his mother, he goes in and he moves the bed. Well, mixing into your father's personal business, it is counted in Torah. The language in the Torah, it's as if he raped her. Mixing into his father's marital business is such a sin that's how it's recorded. Now, obviously, he didn't actually do that, but it's counted as that, and therefore he feels this for the rest of his life. We talk about when the Jewish people leave Israel and they head back they're in Egypt. They go to Egypt in exile, and they're heading back to Israel after Egyptian exile. They carried Joseph and all 12 of the Shvatim, the fathers of the tribes, in their caskets. They brought them back to Israel to be buried in Israel. There was noise from Reuven's casket the entire trip. His bones were rattling the entire trip because he never found rest from the sin that he did in the disrespect for his father. So we see that Reuven is the prototype of teshuvah, of repentance, because he feels this for the rest of his life, even after his life, right? So he's the prototype of doing teshuvah. This idea will come back to us later, because when Joseph is sold, he's not there. Why is he not there? He was off repenting for the sin that had happened years and years ago. He wasn't there at the sale, right? And he's the one who's looking to protect Joseph because he knows what it's like to disappoint your father, and it's still haunting him, right? Yaakov and the family, they return to Hebron, and Yitzchak, his father, passes away. When they go to bury Yitzchak in Moras HaMachpelah, in the cave of doubles, where Adam and Chava are buried, where Avram and Sarah are buried, where Yitzchak is now laid to rest by his wife, right? So when they go there when Yaakov buries Yitzchak in Moras HaMachpelah, and they go to divide the property, the family inheritance. So Yaakov says to Aisav, do you want the burial place or do you want all the physical wealth that dad has?
No brainer.
Well, yeah, that's a no-brainer for Aisav. What are you kidding? Either all the gold and silver and wealth now, or I get a place to be buried. Who needs this, right? What do I need it for? And again, he's echoing back, what do I need the blessings for? I'm not interested. Again, here is this acknowledgement that all the spiritual stuff that belongs to Yaakov, and Aisav is forgoing all of that. But at the same time, we have to understand that Aisav was there for his father's funeral.
Mm-hmm.
To his dying day, Aisav had always shown respect for his father. The mitzvah of honoring your father, Aisav did all the way. There was some deception in there as well, but nevertheless, he is still held as an example of kibbud of honoring one's father. In this part of the Torah, the Torah lists all of Aisav's descendants. He doesn't go into the story of any of them. He just mentions, here they are. It's kind of like sifting through the sand looking for a pearl. Here's the sand, here's the sand, here's the sand. Ah, now let's talk about Yaakov again. And so as we continue on, the next class, we'll start talking about Yaakov and Yaakov arriving in Hebron and building up the family again. We'll take it from there. To be continued.
Okay.